Hey everybody, I'm Paul. I'm a coach and a best-selling author. So if you're someone who has said, oh my God, I just cannot get motivated, I'm going to show you why that's not actually true. And you're going to feel certainly more understanding of yourself by the end of this video, but I hope you feel better. I hope this video feels like relief. When you are listening to messages like discipline over motivation, you might not realize a couple of things. The first one is it's usually people that are flaunting what's already within their comfort zone. So for instance, I used to be a personal trainer in the gym before I shifted onto eating psychology and coaching. So the gym is a comfort zone for me. So even if I was to go on and say, escape your comfort zone, I actually wouldn't be demonstrating it if I was doing a hard exercise in the gym. It's very much a comfort zone for me. If anything, doing YouTube videos for me is a massive step out of my comfort zone. So for me to flaunt that and call it discipline is just wholly untrue. And I think that brings me to kind of another point, which is it's very easy to convince people that you're special. You just keep your flaws out of sight. Because if I'm pointing at you, suggesting that I'm disciplined and putting myself above you, that puts you in a state of shame and it makes you question your own motivation. And there's no such thing as a behavior without a motivation. In fact, a lack of motivation doesn't really exist. Every behavior has a logic to it. Every behavior makes sense to a person the time they make it. And it's much more likely to be something like avoiding shame or feeling pressure or avoiding guilt. And we're really going to unpack that in this video. And I'm going to use this graph somewhere on this screen by Coach Josh Hillis. I took it from his video. He does an amazing job talking about this. And I talk about this so much for my own clients. So I've used his graph here because I think it does such a lovely job. So when we think about discipline, it's very effortful. Discipline is when you're thinking with the head. You won't need as much discipline when you shift into goals that are from the heart. If you've heard me talk about values, this is going to make so much more sense by the end of this video. So let's think of motivation in 4 layers. The most external form of motivation is reward and punishment. So think of the weighing scale. If I'm up on the scale, I'm doing a terrible job. If I'm down on the scale, I'm doing a good job. The problem is that you are never in control of validating yourself. You're always looking to something outside of you to tell you you're doing a good job. And that's why it cannot sustain, because there's only one reason to do the behavior. And when that lets you down, you don't really know why you're doing it. Then we shift in towards guilt and contingent self-esteem. Now, this is where the majority of the fitness and the diet industry actually pulls from. It's the idea that I'll hit my goal and I'll feel worthy. And until then, guilt and feeling not enough is the price I'll pay. I'll be worthy when I lose body weight or when I build that muscle. And until then, I'm just going to wait. And I actually have a personal story about this. You know, a couple of years ago, I remember feeling incredibly self-conscious about my legs because they're just not quite as developed as the rest of me. And I cannot remember where I heard this advice, and I didn't realize how impactful it was on me at the time, but I heard someone say, just decide. Someone was asked how he had a similar body type to me, how do you deal with, having quite a built upper body and slim lower half? And he goes, easy. I just decide I'm okay with that. I dress like a man with a slim lower half. I train like a man with a slim lower half, and I'm happy as a man with a slim lower half. And I just had this moment going, wow, I can dedicate 2 years of my life to building up my legs before I decide I can say wear shorts on the beach, or I can just decide that big legs are not a prerequisite to wear shorts on the beach. And the irony is, since I made that decision, I've been able to exercise on the beach and have fun and sunbathe and do the things I would want to do if I had the so-called body that I wanted to do those things. So it's such a wonderful shift. And we're moving towards how that happened, which is goals related to values. Now, this is when this is hard but worth it. I want you to think of when maybe you don't comfort eat in front of the telly at night because you know it's not good for you. It's hard, but you see the value. It's when you quit smoking and you want the cigarette, but you know you'll be better if you don't do it. So it's hard, but it's worth it. I could eat the dessert, but I don't really want this flavor. I'm going to wait for something better. And then we shift into the most deep, intrinsic, best motivation of all, in my opinion, which is the behavior is its own reward. It's when you want to go for a walk, not to burn calories, but because you just want the movement. Knowing that calorie burning is happening in the background, but it's not your motivation. It's when you want to be friendly to somebody because you're not trying to manipulate them into anything. It's just you want to be a friendly person, and maybe reciprocity makes the world go round. If I'm connected and wise now, I'm making choices now that feel connected and wise, and I'm getting whatever benefits come with that, and it doesn't feel effortful. It's so beautiful when you shift into values because you realize how and why diet rules don't work. Say you're out with friends for a pizza, and you think, oh, that's my favorite flavor. I cannot wait to have this with my friends. It feels connected. It feels fun. I get to choose. Like, I just have to make this decision right now in this moment. And then you might be at home and the same pizza on a Tuesday night, you're bored and you might think, you know what? No, tonight's not the night for that. And this is what I love, because you will not need discipline when you're in your values. It becomes much more like skating downhill. And there's one thing I didn't mention earlier as well, when we're talking about external forms of motivation. If, for example, you're using reward and punishment, you might decide you're going to lose 10 pounds for a holiday or for a wedding. And if you're behind on that goal, it'll be tempting to quit. But an equally sneaky little thing that you mightn't have considered is, if you're ahead of the arbitrary goal, you can feel you're getting complacent. Well, I'm ahead of my goal, I can kind of eat back the calories, and all of a sudden you've gone back because you didn't really have your own internal motivation in the first place. So this is why I don't believe discipline versus motivation is a real thing. I think it's a complete false dichotomy. Discipline is an effortful state of trying to force something, whereas motivation is truly understanding the reason that you act, knowing full well that every behavior has its own motivation. A lot of people who work with me, they don't realize it until we do the work, that it's shame and pain avoidance that drives a lot of their motivation, and we're trying to shift towards, who do I want to be in this situation right now? That's all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.